As promised, let's bring in Dr. Sanjay Gupta. He's out in L.A., I believe, and he's been following this situation, or in California. He's been following this situation. I believe moments ago he was able to watch this tape with us. Sanjay, there?
I'm here, Rick.
Did
I am.
Did you see the video? And I'm going to ask you about his weight, his movements, anything that you saw in this that may make you think that, remember, and I guess for those of you joining us, as I ask this question, remember, this is the most recent video seen to this date of him before he died. This was 2 days before he died. Take it away, Sanjay.
He's obviously very active here. He's moving all parts of his body well. He's singing. I mean, it's one of those things, Rick, where you're trying to piece something together. As a doctor, I'm looking for the big things. His lung capacity, his heart, being able to be that active. I don't know how long the rehearsal took, but obviously it's a physically exhausting experience, and someone who's having some sort of cardio or pulmonary problems might have a hard time doing that. Also, just the singing and being able to keep up with all the dance moves. He looks pretty engaged. So, I don't want to read too much into this, Rick, but this, in a nutshell, doesn't look like someone who's very sick to me.
No.
Maybe not quite as brisk in terms of his movements as we're used to seeing him from years ago, but not bad, Rick.
Although, maybe it's because I've been fighting weight all my life, and I just have a tendency to think it's kind of hard to be that thin. I know you're a svelte guy, but when I'm looking at this video, for a 50-year-old guy, he looks very, heck, I'm going to use the word that I think most people have been using on Twitter. He looks skinny. Does that come into the equation at all? Does it matter?
Yeah, he's thin. There's no question about it, and I think there have been some varying reports on his weight, and it is low, no question about it, especially for a guy who I understand height to be around 5 feet 10 inches tall. So that's for sure. I think, the bigger question, Rick, which I think you're driving at, is what does that mean?
Yeah.
Is he frail? Is he frail, I think? And, when I think of a frail person, I think of someone who's having a hard time conducting activities of daily living, getting out of bed, doing the things that they're supposed to do. So it's hard for me to sort of equate someone who's frail with someone who's able to, get up on stage like that and dance the way that he's dancing and again, be engaged. Obviously, they've been rehearsing. You can tell by the rhythmic movements, between him and his dancers. This is something that's been ongoing for some time, and it looks like someone who's present. He's thin, but I guess I just don't know what to make of that necessarily.
Well, let's put a punctuation on this thing, because I watched you last night on Larry King, and it was interesting to see you talking about. Look, when you put the fact that there are people coming out and saying that he was desperate for prescription drugs, and when you add that with the fact that the DEA last night and today confirmed that they're going to be a part of this investigation now, as a doctor, what's going on with you? What are you thinking that may have been going on with this gentleman?
Well, so it's piecing this all together, starting from, looking at this video and trying to piece that all together. Given that he looks, again, to me, and I don't want to read too much into looking at a video. It's only so much you can tell. But looking at that, he looks like he's active. He's able to move around okay. And the reason that's important, Rick, is because if you think of someone like this who has died 2 days later, you think what caused it had to more likely have been some sort of sudden event as opposed to some sort of chronic event, right? Something that sort of builds up over time. He probably would have been sick 2 days before. Doesn't look that sick 2 days before. So what sorts of things cause sudden problems? Well, we know the cardiac arrest. What can cause a cardiac arrest? If someone has heart disease and they've been sick for some time, they would look different than he does now in this video. So that's when you start to think of things like a sudden electrical disturbance of the heart. What sort of things cause that? Abnormalities in your electrolytes, drugs, medication, certainly, as you've mentioned. DEA, we know, is investigating things. That's certainly very high on my list. When they had the first autopsy, my thinking, Rick, is that there had been something really obviously wrong with his heart, like some sort of congenital deformity. They probably would have mentioned that. They didn't, so that goes a lot lower on my list. But that's sort of how I start thinking about something like this.
Yeah, it's almost the process of deduction, huh? I mean, you take some of the things away, and what you got left with, you go, aha. And I know that obviously it's you as an expert having the right to be able to comment on these things. We'll wait and see what some of the official reports say. But Sanjay, as usual, you're the best. Thanks so much for hustling to get on the air with us and take us through this. We certainly appreciate it. All right, thanks, man.
Welcome back, by the way.
Hey, thanks. Appreciate it.